Good evening, everybody. It's funny to be standing here talking about dying when there's a white light shining over my head. All I can see is the white light. I am a humanist. This is my philosophy. I believe the greatest human right and the greatest human freedom is to be able to live and die according to one's own beliefs and desires. I've had that life. I'm 59 years of age. I was born in Dublin. I lived here till I was 21. I did my nursing at the Mater Hospital. I left and went to Scotland, became a midwife over there, spent 4 years working there. I worked in the Middle East, Saudi, Yemen, and finally ended up in Australia and New Zealand. And I spent the last 28 years living in New Zealand. I discovered my inner athlete and did marvellous, wonderful things, enjoyed a huge life. During my lifetime and during my career, I've seen a lot of changes. In Ireland, divorce is now available for a long time, but this has happened over my lifetime. Contraception is available. More recently, abortion rights are here and are with us now. But the last right that we have not yet broached is the right to die. And it is my belief that under certain circumstances, that somebody should have the right to take their own life. And those circumstances are when somebody is terminally ill and have less than 6 months to live, okay? I'm not talking about anything else other than that. I'm a nurse. I'm a nurse specialist. I spent a long time working in cardiology, cardiothoracics, and my career actually started in Hume Street in the Skin and Cancer Hospital when I was a 17-year-old. So I've seen death and I've encountered death in many guises throughout my whole career. And some deaths were beautiful, some were not. Some were quick, some were peaceful, some were a release. But in there somewhere, there was always, I had always considered, what is the right thing to do? Where are the circumstances where it would be okay for somebody to take their own life? And I battled with this for quite a long time. On and off throughout my career, it would raise its head. And the things I was afraid of was that you have the slippery slope, that maybe we'll start with people who are only 6 months to live, but that might be extended. Or it might be extended to old people merely because of their elderliness. So I certainly didn't want that to happen. I didn't want to think that people could be coerced into it. That concerned me as well too. And I certainly didn't want any situation where, frail, healthy people could be coerced into that. So I really considered and dismissed it. I felt that palliative care was the answer. And to a large degree it is, but it's not. I mean, hospice care and palliative care and pain relief actually doesn't work for everybody. And it's not available for everybody. So that I had this inner discussion with myself for a long time. And that changed when I met this lady here. I'm a humanist, and about 18 months ago, I went to a meeting where I met this lovely, lovely woman. Her name is Gaynor French. And she was terminally ill at the time, and she argued passionately for her right to die at a time of her own choosing. She wanted to have the control, she wanted to have the choice. And even though she was terminally ill, and she was a mother, and she had children, and she worked as a scientist, she still found time to campaign for this cause. She was a funny lady, and I loved listening to her. She was a passionate, full of life. She had a few dying wishes and a few bucket list things that she wanted to do. Amongst them being she wanted to go to a Depeche Mode concert and throw her knickers on the stage. She also wanted to be arrested, and that was arranged for her as well too. Okay? But sadly, she died earlier on this year, not that long ago. And her wish to have the choice and the control to be able to take some medication that would end her life, surrounded by the people that she loved in a peaceful way, was denied to her. Now, I think this is something that the Irish people are ready for. You know, we are compassionate, we are kind, we love life, and I think we respect life and we respect dying. What Gaynor taught me was about the Oregon model. And the Oregon model is in Oregon. It was enacted in 1997. It's been there for 20 years. And the act says that somebody who is within 6 months of dying can take medication and end their life at a time of their own choosing. Now, it's not for everybody, and it's only actually for a very small percentage of people, because who has the strength to ingest a medication that is going to end their life? Well, it's not everyone, and it's actually only a very small percentage of people. The law is very stringent. It's something that you have to ask for. So it's a patient-initiated thing, if you like, a person-initiated thing. You have to go to the doctor and say, "Doctor, I want this." He doesn't suggest it to you. 2 doctors have to review the case. One is your own doctor, and then you have an independent doctor that reviews your medical notes. And then there's a 15-day gap, okay? So it's not something that can happen immediately. There has to be some stand-down time, and then in 15 days later, you go back to the doctor again and say it for the second time, "I want this." If there's any suggestion that you are suffering from depression or you're psychologically disturbed, then you can be referred for a psychological assessment to ensure that that's not what's happening there. And so then after that, then you're given a prescription. So you have this prescription, and you can take it any time you want. Now, this act has been there for 20 years, and something like 1,500 prescriptions have been written for people. And I think it's something like 900 people that have actually taken the prescription and have ended their lives. There's been a lot of independent research after this act has been in place in Oregon for 20 years. And the independent research shows that there is no slippery slope, that it just doesn't happen. It hasn't happened. The law hasn't allowed it to happen. That there is no sign of coercion. You know, it's not there. You know, the law has worked for the last 20 years. But a few interesting things have happened, and these are the unintended consequences of having a law like this. And there have been major societal changes in Oregon, and that is the whole attitude to death. And for example, it's given doctors a kind of a strategy, or it's given them a way to raise the subject of death with people. It means that actually the people of Oregon are the most health literate in the world around the subject of death, because it's a choice that they have. So things like the treatment for depression has improved, hospice care has improved, palliative care services have improved, and if the law was going to be sort of voted on for a second time today, instead of the 51% that got it over the line in 1997, over 80% of the people of Oregon would vote for it because of the positive effects it has had on the whole community. It's made it easier for patients to go to a doctor and talk about dying, and talk about hospice care, and talk about other choices, not only having a prescription to die with dignity. There's my own personal story in this as well too, and that is, in the last 5 years, my mother died of cancer, and more recently my sister died of cancer, and this is my lovely sister here. My sister was a teacher, a golfer. She was younger than me, so a couple of years younger than me. She was diagnosed in 2015 with a glioblastoma multiforme, which was a brain tumor. And for the last 2-3 years, she's actually lived really, really well. And it wasn't until earlier on this year that it became evident that the deterioration had speeded up. So all the time this year, I would have liked to have had a conversation with my sister about how this is going to play out, how she would want to play it out. But unfortunately, because the law isn't here, there was no actual real point in having that conversation. It was moot. It wasn't going to go anywhere. It's not as if we were going to move to Oregon and do something like that. We didn't have the choice. And I do really wish it was a choice my sister could have had. So back to Ireland. There was a law tabled in the Dáil in 2015. It fell off the table because there was a change of government in that time. Myself and a few friends, we formed a little group called Dying with Dignity, and we intend to campaign for this law to be tabled in front of the Dáil again, whenever that may be. So I'm hoping you might go away and think about this, that you might go away and look a little bit more into the Oregon model. The Oregon model, since it was passed in 1997, has also been passed in other states. So it's actually available in 6 other states in the US and more. And there are other countries that have acts, if you like. Canada has an act. The Benelux countries have medical assisted dying as well too. It's a little bit more liberal than the Dying with Dignity Act. But that's Belgium, Luxembourg, and the Netherlands. Australia is discussing it at the moment, and in New Zealand, it's being tabled there in front of the government at the moment as well too. I think it's something that we're ready for, and I just wanted to start a conversation. There's one other person I want to introduce you to, and that's Desmond Tutu. And Desmond Tutu, as a religious man, also believes that it's something that he would like. He would like to have the choice. He would like to have the control over his own death when the time comes. Thank you.